welcome back to HoodBanker Tales. It's your boy HoodBanker. I appreciate seeing y'all come back now. Yeah, you're looking sharp. Yeah, you're looking real sharp. Today's operation is Operation Cointelpro. Now, this one's going to go over a few things that these alphabet boys been doing here over decades. Let me tell you something. Them boys been busy for quite some time, and I'm pretty sure they're still busy now. But anyway, y'all go on and check this out, and I'll catch you at the end with a few words.
HoodBanker Tales presents Cointelpro, the FBI program that secretly targeted Americans. What if I told you there was a time when the FBI secretly infiltrated American organizations, used informants, collected intelligence on political activists, and tried to disrupt movements it considered a threat? Sounds like a conspiracy theory, right? But this time, it's documented. The program had a name, Cointelpro. To understand Cointelpro, you have to go back to the Cold War. America was deeply concerned about communist influence, political extremism, and the possibility that foreign powers could exploit movements inside the United States. In 1956, the FBI created a program called Cointelpro. The name was short for Counterintelligence Program. The first target was the Communist Party of the United States. The objective was not simply to investigate crimes. The FBI wanted to disrupt the activities of organizations it considered threats, and over the next several years, the program would expand. In 1961, Cointelpro expanded to include the Socialist Workers' Party. Then came other targets. The Ku Klux Klan was added in 1964. The Black Panther Party was added in 1967, and other left-wing organizations became targets as well. The FBI later described the program as an effort to counter domestic threats. But the tactics went beyond ordinary criminal investigations. Agents infiltrated organizations, informants were used, information was collected, and in some cases, the FBI attempted to create conflict inside organizations or damage their reputations. The question was no longer simply who was committing a crime. The question became, who was considered a threat? One of the most controversial aspects of Cointelpro involved the civil rights movement. Martin Luther King Jr. became the subject of FBI surveillance. FBI records show that the Bureau monitored King and organizations associated with him. The Church Committee later examined the FBI's investigation of King as part of its broader investigation into intelligence abuses. The issue wasn't simply surveillance. Investigators examined whether government power had been used to interfere with lawful political activity. That distinction became one of the central controversies surrounding Cointelpro. Where does legitimate national security investigation end and political suppression begin? By the late 1960s, the Black Panther Party had become another major target. The FBI considered the organization a threat. Cointelpro operations focused on monitoring members and disrupting the group's activities. Informants were placed inside organizations. Reports were generated, communications were monitored, and officials attempted to create divisions between individuals and groups. Some of these operations were aimed at organizations that the FBI believed were connected to violence. But congressional investigators later criticized tactics that went beyond investigating criminal conduct. The controversy wasn't whether the FBI had investigated dangerous individuals. The controversy was whether the Bureau had used its power against people engaged in lawful political activity. Some Cointelpro tactics were surprisingly direct. Agents used informants. They gathered intelligence. They attempted to expose internal disagreements, and in some cases, they sought to discredit individuals or organizations. According to later FBI historical accounts, agents sometimes attempted to sow discord inside targeted groups and undermine their activities, even when there was little or no evidence of unlawful conduct. That is where the program crossed into territory that would later draw intense criticism. The goal wasn't always to arrest someone. Sometimes the goal was to make an organization weaker, more divided, less effective, and less capable of organizing. But Cointelpro remained secret until an unlikely group of people changed everything. On the night of March 8, 1971, a group calling itself the Citizens Commission to Investigate. The FBI broke into an FBI office in Media, Pennsylvania. They stole hundreds of documents. Among those documents were references to Cointelpro. The documents were eventually leaked to journalists and politicians. For the first time, the public began seeing evidence of a secret FBI program designed to disrupt domestic political organizations. The story wasn't coming from a rumor. It was coming from FBI documents. The documents created a political firestorm. Americans were forced to confront a question that seemed almost impossible. Could a federal law enforcement agency secretly target American political organizations? The answer, based on the documents, was yes. The FBI acknowledged Cointelpro existed. Director J. Edgar Hoover formally ordered the program ended in April 1971, but ending the program didn't end the controversy. Congress wanted to know how something like Cointelpro had been allowed to happen, and that investigation would come a few years later. In 1975, the Senate created the Select Committee to study governmental operations with respect to intelligence activities. It became known as the Church Committee. Over the course of its investigation, the committee examined intelligence abuses involving both the CIA and the FBI. Cointelpro was one of the programs examined. The committee reviewed thousands of documents and interviewed hundreds of witnesses. Its investigators found that the FBI had used covert methods to disrupt and discredit organizations and individuals considered threats. Among the targets were civil rights organizations, anti-war activists, political groups, and Martin Luther King Jr. The hearings brought the secret program into the national spotlight. So what was actually proven? Cointelpro existed. The FBI targeted specific political and activist organizations. Agents used informants and surveillance. Some operations attempted to disrupt organizations. Some tactics were designed to discredit individuals or create internal conflict, and Congress concluded that these activities raised serious constitutional concerns. But there are also claims surrounding Cointelpro that go much further. Some theories connect the program to virtually every major political event of the era. Those claims should be treated differently. Evidence matters. A documented FBI operation is one thing. A claim that the operation secretly controlled an entire historical event is another. Cointelpro helped change the rules governing domestic intelligence. After the Church Committee investigations, new restrictions and guidelines were introduced. In 1976, Attorney General Edward Levi issued guidelines governing FBI intelligence and domestic security investigations. The reforms required greater attention to whether individuals were actually breaking the law or engaging in violent activity. By September 1976, the number of FBI domestic security cases had fallen dramatically. Later reforms would establish additional rules for surveillance and intelligence collection. The era of unchecked domestic intelligence operations had become politically impossible to ignore. Cointelpro is often described as a conspiracy, but there's an important difference. We don't have to speculate about whether it existed. We have the documents. We have the investigations. We have the congressional record. The real question is what lessons we learned from it. Cointelpro wasn't a story somebody invented on the internet. It was real. The FBI really did create the program. It really did target political organizations, and some of the tactics used against those organizations were later condemned. But here's the question. How much power should any government agency have when it decides someone is a threat? And what happens when the people being watched don't know they're being watched? Cointelpro ended decades ago, but the debate over government surveillance, political activism, and civil liberties, that debate never really ended.
So you made it to the end. What'd you think about that? Some good information in there, isn't it? The government separating our parties and everything else. Messing with Dr. Martin Luther King like that in the Black Panther Party. Crazy. They ain't did nothing wrong to nobody. There was no reason for them to be infiltrating and starting all kinds of mess like that. They wasn't doing nothing but helping the community. What was the reasons behind all of this? What, they think they was going to overthrow the government? I don't think that was at the top of their list. Their priorities was looking out for us and making sure that we was going to be okay. And you know, they somewhat accomplished that before a lot of them got disbanded and took it out. But the point is, that didn't need to be taken out. What was the purpose? Sit on that for a little bit. I'll catch y'all next time.